This webinar is on CultureGrams. Here you'll find country reports giving a perspective on daily life and up-to-date cultural information. I'm going to access CultureGrams just up here in our alphabetic list on the gowild.net page. To find out more about CultureGrams, at the bottom of the page you'll see that there's a frequently asked questions link. Here you can find out who writes it, and that would be native and long-term residents, how often they're updated, if you can use the photos, how to save them, and at the very bottom, I think it's pretty interesting that there's a link to show what languages, what countries. There are 4 editions of CultureGrams. The World Edition contains 208 countries, every sovereign country recognized by the UN, and several foreign dependencies. The Kids Edition contains 106 countries, and these represent the most requested by teachers and schools to reflect diversity. There's also the States Edition and the Provinces Edition, containing the Canadian provinces and the territories. You'll find similar content in all of them, and we'll take a look at each one this morning. To get additional information, at the very top here they have a link to a blog. In their blog they'll have a variety of postings. So for example, the latest post is a quiz on Northern Africa. Here they ask questions that you can find answers to within CultureGrams, and they've included the answers there in the comment section. But as we scroll down, you'll see that they also include some behind the scenes information, subheadings information, what new countries have been added to what edition. And we'll see that they've added birdsong audio files to the States Edition, and we'll take a listen to that. So let's start with the World Edition. And we're going to start by looking at the world's newest country, and that's South Sudan. And I can access that here because they highlight it on the main page. When you look at World Edition pages, and these are for ages junior high and older, you'll see that they all have a Did You Know section, some country and development data, information about their flag. You can hear the name of the country pronounced, and you can hear their national anthem. On the right-hand side, you can always print this out in a PDF format. You can also get the accessible report that meets the requirements and will have none of the graphics. And you can email this report. They all contain a photo gallery, slideshows, famous people from that country, recipes of that country. And then they also offer additional tools, graphs and tables, a currency converter. Some of them we're going to get time. You can also link to teaching activities and curriculum standards. And then on the left of each one of the reports, you'll get background information, information on the people, the customs, lifestyle information, society, and the at a glance will usually get you in touch with how to write at the embassy. But let's go back out and just look at how you access various countries in this World Edition. You can use the map here on the main page, and notice under World there's a general introduction. This gives you a little information about culture, information about what CultureGrams can bring to you, and a little information for teachers on using this. So in addition to the map here, we can also access these countries and regions by a drop-down menu at the top left. But let's take a look at one using the map. I'm going to click on South America, and now let's select Venezuela. One of the great things about CultureGrams is if there's a country in the news, you can find out a lot of quick information, detailed information about that country. So given what's been in the news, let's take a look at that. On the left-hand side under Society, I'm going to click to Government, and we can see that they have already indicated Hugo Chávez's death this week. I'm going to return to the Venezuela homepage, and let's look at some of these other features. They always include this country and development data, and you can get these lists. So here's the capital, but if I click on capital, this is going to be great for teachers, I think. Here's the list of nations or territories and their capitals. You'll also notice on this list there are question marks. So under Human Development Index, for example, I'll click on that question mark. It tells me what that is. What are they reporting on and where are they getting those statistics? We can also look at, like I mentioned before, information about the flag, which I think is really great. And a nice piece is the addition of the anthem. So you can add audio as well as visuals with these study reports. So let's take a look at some of the visuals available here. Over on the right-hand side, there are slideshows. So these are the countries that have available slideshows and what those slideshows are. Notice it's dropped me down into Venezuela. So I can look at a slideshow on making empanadas or the vendors in their country, but you can also see the other countries and what slideshows are available. This will open up in a separate window and run through the slideshow. Notice at the bottom I can change how I delay that, I can pause it, and I can move forward and back on the slideshow. What's really great about this is not only are you seeing making the empanadas, but you're also seeing what their kitchen look like, what their utensils are looking like, how they're putting together, if the vegetables are different looking, things like that. Okay, back out here at Venezuela. Some other things on the left-hand side, we looked at government, but you can also see that you're getting quite a look at the culture. You've got greetings, gestures, when you go visit in that country, their eating, their diet, what the customs are, what the traditions are, so things to watch out for if you're traveling in those countries, what you might be eating. Notice that we opened the eating section up, that you can email this, and you can also print just this section. At the top, you always have access to printing the full report in PDF, and again, in an accessible or generating a citation. Also on this eating section here on the right-hand side, they include interviews. So here's an interview with this person talking about her family meal times. And here's the interview. Here's a little piece of that interview, or you can go to the full interview. In those full interviews, they always ask the same questions, so you get the same questions for each country. Different ages, different genders. So here's what's your typical day, what languages do you speak, what role does religion play, things like that. And as always, I can return to the Venezuela home here on the left-hand side. So let's look at another country just to compare this a little bit. This time I'm going to use the drop-down menu at the top left. So we can do both countries, and notice I can do some regions here, and they've added Antarctica. And I think this is an interesting one to take a peek at. Very different sort of region of our world. So here it brings up the map of Antarctica. It also shows under Antarctica, view regional introduction. So here it gives information about Antarctica, and I can view it in PDF format. And notice on the left I can return to my map. If I click on my map, I'm going to go into the information about Antarctica. Here we find that they have no official flag, they have no anthem, but they do have some data here, a little bit of data. And on the left-hand side, they do talk about eating and diet. This is interesting because what it's going to talk about is the various stations follow the culture of their home country. So you'll get information in that regard about who's up there, who's manning those stations. I'm going to click on the World Edition there at the top and come back out to the map. In addition to clicking on the map or using the drop-down menu to access these countries, across the top here, I can go to all of the photos available in the World Edition, videos, slideshows, interviews, famous people, recipes, flags, and graphs and tables. If I click on the recipes, and I could do that within individual countries, this is fun if you're studying countries or doing foods from around the world. There's some countries here that they might not think about that you can see what the recipes are, what foods they're eating. So let's just click on one of them here. I'm going to scroll down. And let's click on South Africa. In the World Edition, they usually have 5 recipes, a main dish, a couple of main dishes, and a dessert. This is really interesting because you'll see that they tell you what it's called, a cup of samp, but that's dried corn kernels. And if we scroll down, you'll get an idea of how they create different cooking methods, what different things that they're using, and the words that they're using in their languages, or and the translation of those. So this is a really fascinating look, I think, at those different country cultures. I can click on at the top the flags, and it will give me all the flags of the countries if they have flags. Notice that I can enlarge it, I can print the outline, or I can go straight to that country page right from these tabs here at the top. The graphs and tables link there at the top in the World Edition has a capability now to build your own. You can create comparison tables and comparison graphs, or you can take a look at various country data and extremes, data they've pulled together in tables already. So for example, let's look at a couple of these. World leaders. I think this is really interesting to again see the world leaders of these countries. I think it might be interesting for kids to see Barack Obama listed as president of some places they might not have thought of. They might be thinking the 50 states, but that we have some other places, and this is taking a bit to load there. There we go. So here's the world leaders. Gives the nation or territory their head of state and their head of government. And you can view this in a printable version. Another interesting section of this graphs and tables are the extremes. I can look at extremes in population, transportation, and communication. And again, they've already pulled this data together. Also note that at the top you can download this into spreadsheet files. So here's transportation and communications on their extremes. So you're seeing longest road systems, most airports, longest railroads, most internet users, most telephone lines. A lot of interesting additional facts to add to their country and culture studies. So now let's take a look at Kids Edition, and I'm just going to move it across the top of the page here. The Kids Edition is geared more towards the upper elementary, as are the states and provinces, where World Edition is more upper junior high and older. The Kids Edition also lets you choose from the map, or at the top left, the drop-down menu. So I'm going to click here on the map, and now let's pick something else that's in the news, and I'm going to click on Pakistan. You'll notice that it's a little different than the World Edition. They still have some did you knows, but I think it's great to look at both of them because they have different tidbits of information. For example, the letters in Pakistan stand for each province's name, and that's not in the World Edition. They also include a map that you can view as a PDF, or you can view the outline map. So if kids are studying a country and you need to fill in information, there is an outline map there. They also give detailed information about their flag. And again, country anthems, hear the country name. On the right-hand side, again, we've got access to photo galleries for Pakistan, videos and slideshows, interviews. So here's all the world interviews that they have linked there. But if you want to do it specific, for example, to Pakistan in the Kids Edition, check out the left-hand side under Life as a Kid. Here they talk about what a kid's life is like, and on the right-hand side, include if there are kid interviews on their typical day in Pakistan. This one also includes a slideshow, so those links show up within each one of the countries. Also on the left-hand side, when you're in the Kids Edition, they have a section on people and places, including can you say it in whatever that country's language is. They also have information about religion, about their timeline in history. Each one of them include a timeline. They also have lifestyle, which is really interesting for kids. Games and sports, holidays, food, schools, and again, that life as a kid's section. Under that, you'll find government, money, and getting around information. And then they also include some cultural facts for each one of these countries. So for example, under Pakistan, they talk about making carpets and that kids are involved in that as well, both in a good way and a bad way. So now I'm going to come up to the top left and get to the drop-down menu and just scroll down, because again, the Kids Edition has 106 countries compared to the World Edition with 208. So here you can see the link of those countries included in the Kids Edition. So if you're getting ready to do a study or make some displays, do some classroom investigations, you can tell right away which ones are included in the Kids Edition. So for example, there's Samoa, and again, timelines, can you say it, life as a kid, the flag, and the maps are all included there. Moving across here to the next edition, that's the States Edition. Again, we've got our map that we can select from, and at the top left, the drop-down menu. You can also view the political map, physical map, and an outline map in PDF format. A great tool for library programs or school programs. So there you've already got an outline map of the United States to use in classroom teaching or for a kid to include in their reports. I'm going to go to Wyoming. Just like we saw in the Kids Edition, for the world, they have the Did You Know section with some tidbits about the state, the map on the right, and the flag. In the World editions and Kids Edition, they talk about the flag, but in the states and the provinces, they don't talk about the flag, which I think is unfortunate. They additionally have added a distance calculator and state time that you can access. And on the left-hand side, climate and geography information. They also include a timeline in history for the states editions. They also have tidbits about history for that state, population and government information, famous people. And just like we saw with Pakistan, there are cultural notes. So for Wyoming, they're including Yellowstone and Frontier Days. So here's the timeline finally loaded up. One of the things that they've added for the states are the state symbols here on the left-hand side. That's where you can find out about each state's state bird, state tree, state flower, state animal, and notice if they have other symbols, those are listed as well. They've added their state bird song audio files so kids can learn to identify and so there's a nice addition that they've added on the state symbols is that state bird audio file. I can switch states here at the top in my drop-down menu. So let's just pick one on the other side of the country here, North Carolina. And again, some tidbits about the state itself, the map, the flag, and again, you can compare state symbols for each one of these, listen to their state bird song, and look at their symbols. So for example, they've even got a state fruit, a state insect, a state shell, and a state vegetable. At the top of the States edition, we can jump to World Edition, Kids Edition, States and Provinces, but notice I can go straight to the flag gallery, to recipes, or to graphs and tables. I'm going to click on the graphs and tables. This is different than the one we looked at before because this is specific to the states. Notice that again we can create our own tables and graphs. We can access this basic information for the states, and then on the left hand side we can look at state data tables and look at those sources. I think it's really interesting under state data tables some of the things that they've pulled that you can look at. So we can get a whole list of the state capitals. We can look at population tables, children below poverty, but we can also look at the most popular baby names. So here's for every state and their most popular baby names in 2011. And that's here under Graphs and Tables on the States edition. So the last one we're going to look at is the Provinces edition. So here's Canada and its provinces and territories. Just like we've seen on all the other ones, we can use the drop-down menu on the top left or use the map. We can also, on the left-hand side, view the political map, outline map, and physical map like we saw for the states. This is a really interesting one because I think most have not even heard of this territory in Canada, and it's got some really great facts in the Did You Know section. So, for example, the sun does not set for 6 months straight. There are only a few kilometers of highway in the whole territory, and you saw how big that territory was. They have their flag included as well, their motto, and some quick facts. There's also province time at the bottom and a distance calculator. They too have recipes, but they also have their sports teams, their different languages, language preservation, and they also do the timeline as well. So all of these have very consistent information, comparable information, whether you're studying the provinces, the states, or countries around the world. To help even more with this, at the bottom of the main page and each page you go into, there are training resources, teaching activities, and a curriculum standards PDF. Under training resources, here you're going to find some lesson sheets, some quick start guides for this particular database, overview videos, and here's a Provinces Edition Basic podcast. There's some lesson sheets. So a lot of additional information to help school folks and library folks get a handle on what all is available in CultureGrams. They also include, on the bottom of this page, teaching activities in a PDF form. This document will let you find activities on various countries at various age groups. There's 79 activities here, 157 pages. Here's some of the table of contents. And if we wanted to look at one of these, so let's just go to a Geography B here. It gives you the objective, the ages, the Common Core Standards Initiative, curriculum standards, time that you're using, the Kids Edition and the States Edition, and then there's their instruction and activity. Also, what we've done here at the State Library is they create some materials that you can use for promotional. So what we've done on the WyomingLibraries.org site is created a promotional handouts link for you. And notice here's some CultureGram bookmarks. You can access this, print these off, and customize them by putting your library name and the gowild.net address for them to access CultureGrams. And notice that kids can then use the QR code with their smartphone to go to a 2-minute video about CultureGrams. So a lot of helpful tools in training resources, teaching activities, and the material itself, whether it's the recipes and the quick country data or the state data tables, where you can pull information about these countries and cultures together. For more information about the databases themselves, you can go back to the gowild.net page where we accessed CultureGrams, and at the top there's help and tutorials to get you some more information. At the very top in the right-hand corner is remote user login, so that you can promote to your patrons, to your students, that they can access these not only from schools and the library, but from home. All they'll need is their library card and PIN number to access those resources at home. The other thing available on the Wyoming State Library page are the archives to these resources, so the library archive page, as well as the Wild Databases blog here on the right-hand side. This is where you can get up-to-date information about things happening, changing, added to our databases. So if you want more about Freeding or Mango, CSRS Discover, Zinio, things like that, check out that blog. Okay, I'm going to come back here to the CultureGrams page and take any questions that you might have. If there are no questions, thanks for joining us today.